Anika, what's the problem? Negative x squared.
Plus 2x plus 8 is less than 0.
Guys, this is a huge example, and I'm only recording this all by itself. This is a negative mistake example that I'm talking about. Okay, here we go. I've asked you to pretend that it equals 0. So you would all write something that looked like this. And from here, I've asked you to be careful with this negative. Because if you're not careful, you will make negative mistakes. And I'll show you how that can happen right now. If I GCF out a negative, and I have x squared minus 2x minus 8 left over, and I factor this out, it would be x minus 4 and x plus 2 equal to 0, but here's where the negative mistake could occur. See what I'm doing right now? Some people will choose to divide both sides right now by a negative so that they get rid of this thing and it's gone. You have to be careful with that because right now what's in blue in parentheses is so that I could find negative 2 and positive 4. You with me? And if you get rid of this negative, your answers are going to be wrong by a negative. Because what you need to do is test the waters in these three intervals. I can start off by trying to test a negative 3. And watch what I'm doing. I would put a negative 3 here and a negative 3 here. What will a negative 3 give me here? A positive or a negative? A negative. How about here? What will a negative 3 give me? A negative. And if you divided out this red negative, you're going to think that the answer should be what? Positive. But it's not. You need to remember you also have this negative, making the whole thing what? Negative.
So it's a negative of the negative of the negative.
Yes. So any odd numbers. Odd negatives are always negative. Even number of negatives will always go and pair up to be positives.
Wouldn't the answer just be all real numbers?
Not on this one. So do you see how I got a negative though for this first one, the first test? Let's try something in between here. What number is easiest? 0. Because I'll get a negative, a positive, but then I have to remember this negative. You see what I'm doing? And remembering this negative, what's that sign going to be over here? Positive. And then the last one I could do is 5, where I have a positive, positive, negative, and this goes back to negative. You with me? All that work to show that my answers are going to be here and here because I was looking for when that equation was negative. And it's all about what do you do with that when you get it factored. Y'all see what I'm saying? So at the original thing, some people, like I'm one of them, will see this and they'll move everything to the right side. So that they'll see x squared minus 2x minus 8 is greater than 0. And it's basically saying, when is it positive? You see what I'm saying? This, I know it's backwards, but this right here, I could also write it as, look, I know it's so subtle, but a lot of people really don't know this. It's the same as writing this. When is all of that positive? So if I were to solve that, and over here with the sign test, I would still get a negative 2. I would still get a 4, but it's different because check this out. X minus 4, x plus 2. If I sign test it by putting a negative 3 here and here, I would get a negative, then I would get a what? Negative, which would give me a what? Positive. If I sign tested a 0, I would get a negative, and if I sign tested something like 5, I would get a positive times a positive, which would give me a positive. Notice, I got different answers here. You with me? This one is saying, when is it positive? Well, 0 to to negative 2, and 4 to infinity. Whereas the other one, if I'm not careful, this one was looking for when is it negative? It's still negative infinity to negative 2 and 4 to infinity. They will both give you the right answers. If you do it the way I suggest for you to do it, by getting this coefficient positive as early as possible, I think it's a lot easier and there's less room for error. If you keep it negative, you have to remember how it's going to trickleate through the problem and it could change it. Otherwise, if you're not careful about that negative, you would have written this, this, and this, and it would have been wrong. Because you would have chosen the wrong interval. And you would have been off by a negative. Yes?
At the beginning, could you have just divided everything by a negative and flipped it, or is it better to think about it as moving?
Oh, that's the master level right there. As far as dividing it by negative and flipping it, that's what you want to do. Because if I divide by negative and I flip the inequality, that's what you're really looking for. Dividing by negative and flipping the inequality is exactly getting to that like that.
So, like, is it
To me,
better
what you just did, what you just said, is the best way. Divide by negative, flip the inequality. But the reason why I did it this way is because a lot of people forget to flip the inequality. You know what I'm saying?